To dominate the conversation, it's going to dominate the races, but it's still Derby Day. Happy Kentucky Derby Day as we get ready for the 151st run for the Roses. Mike Joyce alongside Gabby Gaudet and Joe Talamo, star of The Breakfast Show. Right now, though, we're about an hour from first post. That's all anybody can really talk about. How is this track going to affect the races today?
It's definitely going to affect the races today. We're going to probably be dealing with a sealed, sloppy main track. And obviously when you're looking at the undercard races for the Kentucky Derby on the turf course, the turf is obviously taking on a lot of moisture as well.
Yeah, the turf is going to be very, very deep, I would think. And one thing about the Derby, there's a lot of horses in there. I think more than half the field that have not even run on a sloppy or muddy track before. So it's going to be very interesting how that's going to play
And there's
out.
a lot of kickback with that many horses, right?
Yeah.
There's one thing to get kickback from two horses. When you got 20, woo, there's going to be some racetrack flying in the air. 95% chance of rain. Since the day has started, we'll go ahead and call that 100. The high temperature is 64, so we're not going to get a lot of heat, a lot of sun to dry it out at any point. I think we're just expecting showers on and off throughout the afternoon.
Yeah, it's going to be a steady rain, unfortunately, but just come out and be prepared and do a little bit more research and homework with that off-track pedigree and hope for the best. I mean, it is what it is. Mike, I can't tell you how many derbies have been run on a wet track and just wet weather. I'm hoping, I prayed to the weather gods on the way in. Joe heard me because we carpooled. I did, right? I'm not lying.
That was a pretty good prayer, I must say.
I said, please just make it not rain come Derby time.
I feel like they're going to listen too.
Let's take a look at what's on the agenda for this first hour as we lead up to the first race of the day. We're about 57 minutes to post, and we're going to be taking a look at the weather. We've already done that, really, but we'll revisit it throughout the day. Journalism was schooling yesterday. We'll take a look at how he made an appearance in the paddock. We'll talk about the pace scenario now. Some of those speed horses scratching out. Pace does indeed make the race. We'll cover the field from top to bottom, every runner in this Kentucky Derby, and then we'll tap into the pedigree. We'll Venmo, swing for the fences, lightning round, our picks. Even more than that, it's not just a big day of racing here in the U.S. As we go across the pond, we have the 2000 Guineas coming up, and we have Jess Stafford on site for that as she joins us right now. Happy Guineas Day there from Derby Day here, Jess.
Thank you very much. And look, I'm glad I got the memo. I'm in red for you. I'm in red for you guys because it's very much Kentucky Derby fever as well. I'm really looking forward to the build-up. It's been an amazing week on FanDuel, seeing all the prep and all the workouts from all the contenders, the 20 runners in the Kentucky Derby. But we've got our own mini bit of excitement here as well, as it's the first race in our British Triple Crown, the 2000 Guineas, the first classic of the season here, and this is the lineup of 11 three-year-old colts, and they'll be running on the turf down the straight here at the Rolling Mile at Newmarket. And the favourite is Field of Gold for Kieran Schumacher, John and Thady Gosden, a horse that has already ticked a big box in winning his prep race in the Craven Stakes. He is the hopes of the Juddmonte team, who of course have got Final Gambit in the Kentucky Derby. So what a big day it could be for them if they have that transatlantic double. Field of Gold, who's a big grey horse, a son of Kingman, who himself as a racehorse was second in the 2000 Guineas, so came close. John and Thady Gosden have yet to win this prestigious race, and all the big successes that they've had in especially John Gosden's career, this is one that he has yet to tick off. So can it happen today? Can John and Thady win with this Field of Gold? As I said, it could be a big opportunity for the Juddmonte team, but the Godolphin team as well. They'll have the likes of Ruling Court in the race and Shadow of Light too. So a lot of connections, hoping for big money here in the UK to back that up with what they've got to look forward to over with you in Churchill. So a lot to look forward to. And as I said, I'm pleased I got the red memo with you guys.
Amazing thing about Godolphin is they've got two great chances, and one of their chances in East Avenue just got probably a bigger chance with a scratch of other speed. I think if he's in front on this wet track, that could only help him.
Yes, it definitely could. I still think that, and we'll talk about the gate breaks in a minute, East Avenue, I've always liked him as a horse, and I thought he definitely came back in a big way in the Bluegrass last time out. But to me, He struggled to make the lead that day, and then he struggled to get to the finish line. He was on the wrong lead, and he only has to go farther. So I don't think that bodes well for him.
Yeah, quite a few of his starts, when he breaks slow. I know in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, he had an absolute horrendous start that definitely compromised him. And even last time in the Bluegrass, he did break a step slow, and Luan Machado had to really, really hustle him to get the lead. And again, there is other speed in there, so it's just a matter of how fast they're going to go.
Fine, I like them. Join us on YouTube. As you can see, we'll be streaming this part of the program as well. You can get involved in the conversation. The channel is at FanDuel Racing. So let's talk about who might benefit from the off-going as the racetrack has come up sealed, sloppy. Which ones of these horses will step up, which will step back? Here's the off-track experience for Kentucky Derby winners, or Kentucky Derby runners, I should say, Joe. And there are a few that have made a start in the off-going.
Yeah, look at Coal Battle. 2 for 2. American Promise, Admire Daytona, Luxor Cafe Publisher. You know, the more I look at Luxor Cafe, I kind of like him. I really, that backtrack of his last race I thought was very impressive visually. And again, he's run over it 4 times, so, and 3 wins.
So those are the horses that have experience, but that begs the question, the ones that don't have experience.
Yeah, I actually think it moves up 2 horses, Final Gambit, because it's likely going to be a sealed track, and I know there's still going to be kickback, but I think he would have a better go of it on a sealed wet track than a traditional harrowed fast track. And then another horse, and we heard from the connections, in that Flying Mohawk. They've been praying for rain. Whit Beckman said yesterday he was praying for rain for Drexel Hill. She ran a great second in the Kentucky Oaks. So I think that's definitely a horse to pay attention to as a long shot.
I don't understand the logic for Flying Mohawk. Why would this horse prefer to be sloppy? I mean, he's a synthetic and turf horse by Caraconte. Where does the off-track come in?
Like I said, it's a sealed track. So, I mean, you can kind of speak to this. I think horses who are better on the synthetic and the turf, they're used to kind of that firm surface that you run over top of, and that kind of simulates a sealed surface as opposed to a harrowed surface, right?
And I think that's why you'll notice, like, when races come off the grass on a sloppy track, a lot of turf horses like the slop. To Gabby's point, it's a lot firmer, but then when you go on a fast track, they don't like it at all. So the slop actually will help a turf horse sometimes. So I think that's why what's wanting that to happen.
All right, time to get your journalism major, you two. We all can't be Scott and Christina, but we're going to try. So there is the Kentucky Derby favorite, Santa Anita Derby winner, and who thus far has proven himself to be the best 3-year-old with this crop. We're going to go through the pros and the cons. Here are the pros. Has the top buyer speed figures, the top 2 buyer speed figures entering the Derby. He's undefeated going a route of ground, and among the fastest Derby prep horses in recent memory on those speed figures, Joe. How important are all 3 of these points?
I mean, all 3 are very, very important. And one thing I love about him even more today, Mike, is he's by Curlin. I was there when Curlin won the 2007 Breeders' Cup Classic with Robbie Alvarado. I thought that was one of his most impressive races. So, I mean, if he runs like his daddy today, he's going to be awfully tough.
And that's what you're talking about. His 108 buyer is the highest of any Curlin son entering the Derby. Exaggerator had the previous high, 103. Curlin's top buyer before the Derby was 105. And Curlin is the sire of 2 of the last 3, the grandsire, excuse me, of 2 of the last 3 Derby winners in Rich Strike and May.
He hasn't yet gotten a Derby winner, but keep in mind, he did sire Good Magic, who was second in the Kentucky Derby over a sloppy track, and he almost could have won that year, obviously. But look, you have to take into consideration pedigree, and you think that they can get it, but you never know until they actually try it.
Let's take a look at some of the cons. If you can poke some holes in the favorite, we take a look at this. So, been facing small fields. So, think about this. He has beaten in his entire career 23 horses in total, and he's going to face 18 today. So that could come into play. And the one question mark, well, who's he beating? The answer is every horse is lined up against him, but the small fields could come into effect. Too good to be true. He's never had a bad day. I don't know about that. I don't know if it's a bad point that he's always good. And then the wet track uncertainty. So these 3 things, Joe, how do you weigh them?
Yeah, I mean, these are cons without a doubt, and especially In California, as everybody watched, you know, it's 5-horse fields, 6-horse fields. He's got 18 other horses today that he has to fend off. But I was just so impressed with his Santa Anita Derby victory. For him to handle that adversity, checking around the turn when he lost all momentum. Most horses wouldn't have even hit the board after a trip like that. So I just like the fact that, because he's probably going to encounter that and more today.
I told you, Maddie.
Let's talk about the pace of the race, Gabby, and how it all sets up, because this will be the most important thing when the gate opens, who is where and how it affects the speed.
Gate breaks are extremely important in a race like the Kentucky Derby. You want to get out. The horses are undoubtedly, some horses in the Kentucky Derby are not going to break well, and you kind of want to break ahead of them so that they don't compromise your trip. But Citizen Bull is the horse that needs a good gate break. Joe, we'll take you back to one of his last races in the Santa Anita Derby. He was number 2 this day, and it's really important to see this gate break, especially considering the fact that he draws the rail today, and he's going to have to clear all the other horses to his outside.
Yeah, not only this race, but there was a couple others before where he does break a step slow, and then Martin Garcia, his rider, does have to kind of hustle him a little bit. But again, drawing the rail today, if he breaks a step slow and everybody's coming over, it could be an absolute mess.
And he's been known to break a step slow. If he breaks a step slow coming out of the gate from the 1 hole, no shot.
What about East Avenue as we take a look at his bluegrass? We were mentioning that earlier. He hasn't been, for a horse with as much speed as he has, that first jump has been a little lacking.
It has. Even 2 starts back at the fairgrounds, break wasn't that great. And then in the bluegrass at Keeneland, he broke fine. But look at how he breaks inward, and then how they hustle this horse out of the starting gate. I mean, he is quarter horsing going into the first turn, all out, fully extended, trying to make the lead.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this wasn't his first time breaking like that, Gabby. He's done that multiple times, and then he kind of gets going. And his rider, every time, I feel like they do have to hustle him to get in. So, again, if he breaks like that in the Derby and needs to lead, it's not going to be pretty.
It's funny because I read those tea leaves differently. I thought he didn't have the best break. He still got the lead. He was on the lead, and he held on after Burnham Square ran him down. He ran a really fast number. I thought the Toyota Bluegrass was a positive for East Avenue.
But he was on the wrong lead. He was on the wrong lead, and he looked dog-tired getting at the finish line.
We just did a whole week of shows proving that I can't tell when a horse is on the wrong lead. So just stop with that. How about Sandman? It's a horse who won the Arkansas Derby. That was the best race of his career. The hole they poke in this is that the pace fell apart. They went 6 furlong fractions in a mile and an eighth race.
Yeah, but look at the gate break here. He goes out, and now this wasn't that bad, but again, if he's standing for a long time in the starting gate and he breaks outwardly or inwardly, he doesn't break straight out of the starting gate, that's going to be a problem. And don't forget, it was one of his Derby preps at Arkansas where he stumbled so badly coming out of the gate. He's not been a great gate horse.
Yeah, he's a horse too. He's so big and lanky. I feel, again, as we talked about, he might be in the gate too long. When he gets in there, you can see sometimes he'll kind of move a little bit, and I feel like in a few of his races, right before they spring the latch, he'll move and then get distracted. And again, I think it was 2 races back, maybe in the Southwest.
So there's some rain in the area today,
absolutely horribly. Like he almost like reared up and then went in. And again, it's just so imperative that you get a good break, because where you think you would be, 4 or 5 lengths off the pace, you end up 6 lengths further back.
If he breaks out or in, it could also compromise the horse's trips that are to his outside and inside too.
He's also a little, for as tall as he is, he's kind of light, right? He's not a very, that will help him on a track like this because he's not going to sink into the mud.
And you also want to look at their overall conformation. Sometimes we talk about cuppy feet as well. Sometimes horses with kind of that small, tall foot can really skip over the surface of a racetrack that is sealed. So yeah, there are certainly some things to consider, and he is probably one of the more lightly framed horses in this year's Kentucky Derby.
The feet, we need the tall feet.
Tell us about the chaos.
Cuppy.
Dubs, can you take over for a moment? I'm going to go check all the feet of the Derby runners to see who's got the tall ones.
Hey, Mike, yourself and the team are looking fantastic out there at Churchill Downs. I was going to rock the red and lose me in this graphic. We're wearing green. We're ready to make that money. It's only fitting that the International talks about the 2 international raiders coming in for this year's Kentucky Derby. And we're looking at Admire Daytona and Luxor Cafe. Now, the 2 Japanese runners will start side by side. So let's go over the chances for Admire Daytona in search of doing something very, very special. This will be the first time in history that we see a Japanese runner take down the Kentucky Derby. And what I do like about Admire Daytona, just that one pressing run start, sort of like a V8 engine. What we saw in the UAE Derby was that ability to take that game on the road. It's certainly going to bode well out there this afternoon. Now, Admire Daytona Luxor Cafe have squared off in 2 races. Luxor Cafe got the better of Daytona on both occasions. I love Luxor Cafe. I've been hyping up the chances here for months, and this is why. 4 wins on the bounce, looking to make it 5. This is a proven winner, no matter the stage. A devastating turn of foot. Has that fitness in bunches in a very professional mind, mature beyond the years. Now we get Magic Man Joe Moreira in the irons here this afternoon. And for fans of this great game who may be unaware with the expertise of Joey Moreira or Christophe Lemaire, these are 2 of the best pilots in the world. You look at the international ratings sitting in the top 10 there, so we're certainly not going to lose much. And if you're looking for that hunch play, it is the 10-year anniversary from what we saw American Pharoah do back in 2015. One of 2 sons running in this year's big race. The son of American Pharoah, Luxor Cafe, in search of getting it done. And I think the weather is only going to help the chances. Back to you, Mike.
You want a little chaos, Ahmed? You guaranteed it the first Saturday.
10 years ago, American Pharoah ended the drought of Triple Crown winners. It's amazing that it's already been a decade. It seems like yesterday.
I cannot believe that, honestly.
Well done, it is
if you were to ask me, I'd say, yeah, like 6, 5 years ago, but man, time flies.
Joe, you're just amazed that we have somebody in the department that can count to 10.
Yeah, I mean, I was 25 back then, Mike. Incredible how time flies.
I just want you to see the jockey did the math without an abacus. That was amazing. At any rate, let's take a look at the pedigree. What's amazing is one of the best sires in the game is Tapit, and his influence can be felt everywhere. But shockingly, he's never had a Derby winner, despite having competitors, favorites, everything but the actual winner. Take a look at his progeny in the Derby over the last 13 years.
I mean, they haven't done well at all. Normandy Invasion finished 4th. Mohaymen finished 4th. Tacitus 3rd and Essential Quality 3rd. So those are really his 2 best Derby starters, I would say, in Tacitus and Essential Quality. Outside of that, yeah, 0 for 14, not a great record.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I never thought that. Essential Quality, I will say, I think he was pretty good in the slot, too.
You have no idea where in the world
we should say he is a sire to Sandman this year, and he's the only Tapit in the race this year.
Destination X.
There's a legitimate chance. We'll see what he can do. Let's go through the field of the Kentucky Derby as we take a look at the runners. We're going to start with the inside and work out numeric order, almost like a post break. Gabby, it all starts with Citizen Bull here.
It does, and the gate break is going to be extremely critical for this horse today, but Bob Baffert sends this horse out. If he can make the lead, I think he could maybe take him very far.
Joe, there's Neo Equos, big number.
Yeah, Louis Saez is going to pick him up because Flavian Pratt rides by Isaac Udruin. Staffy Joseph trains. Finished 3rd in the Florida Derby. Definitely going to have to step it up.
Final Gambit is Brad Cox's only charge this year. Obviously, he won the Kentucky Oaks yesterday with good cheer. And Final Gambit is an off-the-pace type of horse.
Is a life well
and Rodriguez is out. Here's a 5. American Promise. D-Wayne Lucas. Nick Flores. His first Kentucky Derby. He won the Virginia Derby last out by 7 lengths. He's going to look to be part of the early pace.
To keep you
Admire Daytona, 41-1 for this horse. He does come out of a win in the UAE Derby last time out, though, and he is one of 2 Japanese contingents.
Luxor Cafe, he's going to look to make it 5 in a row. Won his last one by 5 lengths, and it was on a muddy track.
And there is the Derby favorite, Journalism. He has done absolutely nothing wrong. Winner of the San Felipe and Santa Anita Derby, and he had to overcome trouble in the Santa Anita Derby.
As Burnham Square, Brian Hernandez going to look to make it back-to-back Kentucky Derbies. Ian Wilkes had a nice nose victory last out.
Grande is a scratch. It'll be the first time since 2003 Todd Pletcher hasn't had a Kentucky Derby starter. Flying Mohawk, 32-1 right now for trainer Whit Beckman. His horse ran really well in the Oaks yesterday with Drexel Hill.
As Mike Joyce's top pick, East Avenue.
Hey, I didn't say top pick.
Going to look to break sharp under Manny Franco, Brendan Walsh,
like every Chevy driver.
Publisher, a lot's been said about this horse in working in the mornings, but he has not won a race. Trainer Steve Asmussen sends him out. He and the horse are going to hope to break their maiden today in the Kentucky Derby.
That's Tastic, another Steve Asmussen trainee for Joel Rosario. Nice win last out in the Louisiana Derby.
I just want to know
Render judgment, obviously for the connections of the late Toby Keith, it would be an incredible story if he were to indeed win. He's sent out by Kenny McPeak, who won with Mystic Dan last year.
There's Cole battle for Lonnie Riley. Juan Vargas strides 2 for 2 on a wet track that we mentioned earlier. Had a really nice campaign down the north as well.
Enter Sandman. This horse is going to take a lot of play because of the ties to the name, of course, to the band Metallica, and a lot of social media influence coming into this year's Derby.
There's Sovereignty gets Junior Alvarado for Bill Mott, won the Fountain of Youth by a neck and came back to finish second in the Florida Derby.
Chunk of Gold was purchased for $2,500 and has earned his way into this year's Kentucky Derby for the young trainer, Ethan West.
Owen Almighty, he's looking to bounce back off a 6th-place effort last time out in the Bluegrass. The time before he won by 3 in the Tampa Bay Derby.
And with the scratch of Grande, enter Baeza. I think this horse entering this year's Kentucky Derby changes a lot of tickets and opinions.
That was a look at your field for Kentucky Derby, number 151. Thank you, two, for taking us through that. Just a cursory glance. You've been joining us all week here on FanDuel TV and also on the YouTube channel at FanDuel Racing. Been able to enjoy the breakfast shows, some of the behind-the-scenes looks in the barn area here. Great work from our reporters, including Gabby, with Andy and Caden and Scott. We have one of the best teams in the world. And we also have Joe Talamo. He was nice. At any rate, we're going to take a look at all these different wagers that are races that overlap the Kentucky Derby. We're going to go Venmo here. Let's take a look at this. So we've got 2 pick 4s, 3 pick 3s, 2 pick 5s, the pick 6. That's all encompass the Kentucky Derby. Now, you have pick 3s and daily doubles, and you have a daily double in, a daily double out. Hopefully you're live in that Oaks daily double. But this is why the Kentucky Derby on the wagering menu is so important. You got to be right about the Derby, and if you are, and you can be right with these other wagers, you can be walking away with racks upon racks upon racks. Here's the full wagering menu of the day. We are going to have, obviously, the wagers you see before you, but this is how they lay out in order. Starting with the pick 5. The pick 5s are in race 1, 3. We have an all-dirt stakes pick 5 starting with the Knicks Go. We have another pick 5 in the Churchill Turf Mile. We have the Derby City pick 6 starting in the Turf Sprint. We got another pick 5 starting in the Churchill Downs. We got another pick 5 starting in the Derby Distaff. You're starting to see a pattern here.
Lots of pick 5s if you're a pick 5 fan.
All of these pools are going to be $1 million plus, all those pick 5 pools.
I'm having trouble counting all that, Mike.
Don't worry, we'll get a guy with a calculator to stand behind you and tell you what we're doing. At any rate, please get in on the action. And one bet that's been ridiculously lucrative. If you can hit the superfecta in the Kentucky Derby, you don't have to work this week. You might have to work for the rest of the month. I don't know about the rest of your life, but depending on the zip code you're in, possibly. Look at this. When Rich Strike won, if you had the super, $321,000. With Country House, 51 grand. With Always Dream, it's 75 grand. I even want to bring up Nyquist because we've got a couple of little asterisks there. That was the favorite over the second choice, over the third choice, over the fourth choice. The superfecta paid $542. If you can hit it, that's a big ol' if, Gabby. You're going to make some cash.
What about Justify? Field size, obviously 20 that year, return just shy of 20 grand.
Right.
But it is hard to do. And Dallas Stewart doesn't have a runner in this year's Derby. He was always the guy that I would throw in blindly.
Yes.
I don't care what the horse's form looked like. I would blindly throw in Dallas Stewart. So we have to find some other long shots today.
He is a Damon Runyon character,
Yes.
top to bottom. Okay, what else do we have, Gabby? We have a pick 3 to close out the card. How are you going after this, and what's the strategy?
Okay, so a little bit of a backstory. The year that Rich Strike won, I played this, and I'm coming back at it this year.
Good.
I hit the all button in the Derby that year, and then I singled a horse in the last race, and that's kind of the strategy that I'm doing this year. I'm going to be hitting the all button in the Kentucky Derby. I'll be using a couple horses in the subsequent race. Do we have a graphic to show?
No, you're just going to
Okay.
talk about it. I'm
right.
kidding. We got a graphic.
Like
we always got a graphic.
I've got a lot of numbers flying around. There we go. Hitting the all button in the Kentucky Derby. In race number 13, I'm using a long shot Furio because the Joe Sharp barn has been doing so well. The 7 Multiverse, fast figures there, Romanesque for Bob Baffert. The 11 Patch Adams, I know a lot of people like him, and Big Truz for trainer Brian Lynch, who was super impressive first time out. Then I am singling Dale Romans with the 12, Pursuit Never Sleeps.
Love that horse.
Sometimes we do events during the week leading up to Kentucky Derby. I was on an event for Bellarmine, local university.